So as
Sorry.
Melody, as you mentioned, my name is Jim Greiner, and I'm the faculty of Harvard Law School, and I was privileged to be involved in the phase two, which I'll explain in just a minute, the phase two aspect of Mothers Outreach Network's Mother Up program. And we're talking today about the phase three stage. So let me just distinguish those phases. Phase one was a sort of pre-pilot in this that Mothers Outreach Network ran to see to investigate the logistical issues that would occur in enrolling individuals, Black mothers with potential or actual CFSA involvement in the Mother Up program and to deliver the services for the Mother Up program. And I believe that involved somewhere between 5 and 10 individuals, but did not have a research component. And Melody and her team were unsurprisingly able to pull off phase one and were able to execute it and learned a lot from that. Phase two, which was where Melody, you brought in the Access to Justice Lab, did in fact have a research component to it, and the Access to Justice Lab was privileged to be involved. And the idea there was to enroll somewhere between 18 and 22-ish participants and involve them in a randomized study. The money was not sufficient to provide the $500 a month to all persons who were eligible, and so all 20-ish of the folks who were eligible. And so we figured that the fairest way to distribute the money when there wasn't enough to go around was to randomize who would receive it and who wouldn't, and then try to learn from that process. In other words, by gathering data from folks who did receive the direct cash transfers and those who did not, did not were called the compensated research group because they had the opportunity to earn around $200 or $300 by responding to surveys and participating in interviews. And so the Access to Justice Lab issued a report about phase two in November. Folks who were eligible for phase two were folks who had been involved with CFSA in the sense that was either an open case or a recently closed case that had not resulted in the removal of the child from the home. So the mother was still the mother was still exercising custody of the child, and but was involved with CFSA. The CFSA involvement was either ongoing or very recently concluded. And we were able to learn a lot from phase two about the process again of running a potential larger study, one that would give us big enough to give us quantitative results. This study, phase two, was not big enough to do that because it was only about 20 participants, but we did learn a ton from the interviews, a bunch of qualitative information, and I'm going to share a sampling of some of that information that's from our report. Again, the report was issued in November, and it is up on both the Mothers Outreach Networks and the Access to Justice Lab's website. So you can peruse the whole thing if you want. It's not very long. It's only about 27 pages. But again, the most startling thing about that process we're hearing directly from the participants. We got some really interesting interview quotes and some really interesting information from the interviews. In particular, what mothers were able to do with the funds that they had to push off or to do without when they didn't have the funds. And to give you an example of this, something that I found startling at the time and continue to this day to find startling was something as simple as shoes, purchasing shoes. And then let me read a quote from one of the participants right now. It's quoted in our report. Here's the quote. "The money has really helped me a lot." This is a participant who had received the direct cash transfers. "The money has really helped me a lot. Like, it helps me to the point where I can still pay my bills and still have some money left over. I can put money away for my kids. And like I said, get them, like a new pair of shoes if they can't fit their old ones. I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, am I going to have money after I get their shoes? I was actually able to get myself a pair of shoes last weekend, and I have not bought myself anything in like 2 years since I got pregnant. So it was like, it felt great. I wanted to cry. I really felt great to do that for myself. So this is the sort of thing that I at least had just assumed that money would always be available. When shoes got old, you replace them. Or when my own kids grew out of their shoes, we would get new ones because we had the resources to do so. And for mothers who do not have those resources, they may have to continually push off shoe purchases. And in fact, we heard from participants about that sort of thing. And then for people who are not thinking the way that Mothers Outreach Networks wants them to think, put it that way, or thinks they should think, that might look like neglect because a child is showing up to school with either inadequate shoes or no shoes. Whereas in fact, the problem is insufficient resources and support. We also investigated in phase two about whether participants thought in their interviews that the lack of funds or that challenges with respect to income had contributed to their CFSA involvement, and why it was that CFSA had insisted on becoming involved in their lives. And many of them, in fact, recognized that there was a direct link. And so a quote, for example, for recognizing that link is the following. I was in a domestic violence situation with my child's father, and I just kept going back to the situation, not because I had feelings for the person, but because that was the only person I had to help with the kids. And I couldn't pay nobody to help with the kids, to babysit. Another surprising thing for us was that some participants, when we asked them, they said there wasn't really much of a direct link between funds and CFSA involvement. So when we asked them what the source of the CFSA involvement was, in other words, what was the problem, they then articulated a narrative that there was a problem, but if you listened, funds might have solved that problem. I won't say would for sure, but might well have solved that problem. And so maybe you call that an indirect link or whatever you would call it, but let me give you an example and you can make up your own mind. When we asked the participant a question about finances in the CFSA case, here was a response. No, I don't think there's a link if I'm understanding the question right. So this is like whenever CFSA, I believe it's called, when I had a case open with my child, yeah, well, I guess you could say it was because of finances because I couldn't get to the doctor's office for the child to get seen and stuff. But also health paid a part because I had surgery. So I couldn't move. And so to me, reading that, I would, say that there probably is a link, not just because of issues with finances to get to the doctor's office for the child, which the participant recognized and said that is a financial issue, and that's leading to the CFSA case, but also an inability to hire help for child care when the participant was recovering from surgery, which funds might well help address. And so these are the sorts of findings that, again, I found personally startling and highly illuminating from our phase two pre-pilot. The idea here is to run a phase three pre-pilot that asks many of the same questions and has many of the same surveys involvement, and it also shares the randomized aspect to it, again, because there's not enough funding to go around for everybody who's eligible, but with a different service population. And so a different set of folks, and they're in a different stage with vis-a-vis CFSA. So with that introduction, let me turn it over to Renee to talk about phase three.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks everyone for being here. My name is Renee Dancer. I'm a researcher with the Access to Justice Lab at Harvard Law School, working with Jim daily and with the joy of working with Melody on this project. So Jim mentioned that there's a difference in service population for the phase three. Well, to get a little deeper into that in when Melody talks about eligibility criteria, but the key piece, the key difference is that we're looking at mothers with children who have been removed from the home, either through CFSA or through a hidden foster care arrangement. And they are currently removed or were removed in the recent past, so within the last year. There are a couple other structural differences to this phase. We are first, there's still the same two groups that folks will be randomized into, either the direct cash transfer or the compensated research group. But those who are in the direct cash transfer will have the $500 a month for a longer period of time, so for 3 years. The other structural difference is that those in the direct cash transfer group will receive all of the Mothers Outreach Network services that Melody mentioned, including the legal services. Those in the compensated research group will not receive those. They'll receive referrals to community-based services. And then the other kind of similarity, but structural difference as well, is that everyone will continue to participate in surveys. We mentioned the surveys in the last phase as well, and everyone will continue to be compensated for surveys that they complete. In this round, only some of the participants in both of the groups will be invited to do interviews, and they'll be compensated for interviews if they complete them. So we'll interview 7 people from each group, and essentially they'll be the first 7 that enroll in each group. So just to recap, 2 groups: direct cash transfer group getting that $500 a month for 3 years, plus Mothers Outreach Network services, including the legal services, and compensation for surveys and potentially for interviews. The compensated research group continues to get compensation for completing surveys, and if they're invited to complete interviews, also compensation for completing interviews, and they'll receive referrals to community-based services intended to kind of supplement that Mothers Outreach Network services. We'll talk a little bit about outcomes now. We have expanded the outcomes we're looking at slightly through the surveys and interviews. We've also extended the time period that we'll conduct surveys and interviews. So you'll see everyone will take a survey and everyone will be interviewed at their time of enrollment. Everyone will be compensated for taking that survey and for being interviewed at the time of enrollment. For surveys, everyone will be invited to take a survey at months 18, 36, and 42, and those that do complete the survey will also be compensated for that. For interviews, the first 7 in each group will be invited to do another interview at months 6, 12, 36, and 48, and all mothers that are invited and complete the interview will also be compensated. So we learned through our last phase that we have some room to expand what we're learning and looking at from our mothers. In the surveys, we'll continue to look at things like family well-being, health and well-being, self-efficacy, financial well-being. We've also added questions about employment and housing and food security. For our interviews, we're going to continue to look at things like finance management and CFSA involvement, but we've also added questions about legal needs, the effect of the community-based resources referrals or the Mothers Outreach Network services, and then the effect of the direct cash and compensated research, as the case may be. Those types of questions were in our prior round as well. For the surveys, all of those questions are regularly used survey tools, so we can have some confidence in the outcomes that we see. And for the interviews, we're really trying to dive deep and get some impressions from the mothers about how the services as well as the cash is affecting their lives. Similar things to what you heard Jim mention through the quotes in the phase 2 report. Just to give you a brief understanding of what mothers will go through while they're participating in the evaluation, this is how mothers will navigate through the process from start to finish. So referred mothers will complete an online application that will go to Mothers Outreach Network. The online application is really just a high-level understanding of whether or not mothers are eligible. The goal is to have as many mothers that are seem like they might be eligible get to the next phase so that Mothers Outreach Network can do a more in-depth eligibility screening. But we want to avoid screening people out at just the online application phase. Mothers Outreach Network will do a more in-depth eligibility interview for those mothers who are determined to be eligible after that interview. Mothers Outreach Network will conduct the benefits counseling that you heard Melody mention earlier in our presentation today. And then after that, Mothers Outreach Network will invite mothers to another meeting where they'll go through the consent process to participate in the evaluation, which includes understanding that it's voluntary, understanding that they'll be randomly assigned to either get the compensated research or to get the direct cash, that it's not a decision that is made by any one of us, but by random choice, and that to consent that they'll participate in the surveys and interviews and allow us at the Access to Justice Lab to look at some of their administrative records that may exist at CFSA and other organizations. For those mothers that consent, Mothers Outreach Network will connect them at that same meeting directly with us, and we'll do that first interview with them, we'll do that first survey with them, and we'll conduct the random assignment. After conducting the random assignment, we'll let mothers know which group they're in, direct cash transfer group or the compensated research group. Mothers at that point will go back to talking with Mothers Outreach Network. For those in the direct cash transfer group, Mothers Outreach Network will give them the card that they'll receive that direct cash on at every month. It's looks like a credit card, but it's devoted solely to that direct cash. And the Mothers Outreach Network will also give those begin the process of giving community-based referrals to the compensated research group. Each of these groups will also receive in the mail from us at the Access to Justice Lab a card where they'll receive all of their compensation for surveys and interviews, and that compensation for that first survey and interview will come to be on that card at that point in time. After that, for the direct cash transfer group, Mothers Outreach Network will continue to disperse that money monthly. We will continue to do the surveys and possible interviews for those who are in the interview group. And then for the compensated research group, we will continue to do surveys and possible interviews. For everyone, we'll also begin looking at their administrative records that may exist with CFSA and other agencies. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Melody, who's going to talk about eligibility criteria right now and then partnership opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I just want to say, I know a couple of folks have left, that we really are dependent on you all to assist us in identifying moms, participants, and thank you for being here today. So I want to walk through who is eligible to participate in phase 3, and this is really important for those of you who are here because you work with women who may qualify. A woman is eligible for phase 3 if she meets all of the following criteria: is 18 years of age or older, resides in DC, wards 4 through 8, has English literacy, is eligible for public benefits, meaning she is at or below 250% of the federal poverty level, is not currently receiving SSI so as to avoid impact on that, which is truly a permanent guaranteed income for those who are deemed eligible for it. And specifically for phase 3, she has experienced a current or recent removal by CFSA within the past year. And we really want to emphasize that it was a year or less ago that they experienced that removal. The last criterion is really what defines phase 3. It sets it apart from the earlier phases. We are specifically working with mothers who are already in or recently coming out of, and again, the removal has to have happened a year or less ago, involvement with the system, mothers who are in the reunification process, or whose children have been removed. This is where the need is most acute and where we believe our integrated model can make the greatest difference. I also want to be direct with partners about something. We know that some of the women you serve may have complex circumstances, a pending legal matter, a history of domestic violence, a complicated benefit situation, and those things do not disqualify them from participating. In fact, those are exactly the circumstances our model is designed to meet. We want to hear from you if you think someone may be a fit, and we will work through the details together. So let me walk you through exactly how the referral process works and what kind of support we can offer your organization. And we really can't do this work without community partners, attorneys, social workers, advocates, case managers, organizations, thank you, who are already trusted by the families we are trying to reach. You're not just a referral pipeline, you are co-architects of this outreach, and we want to build a process that actually works within your existing practice. So here's what partner participation looks like, and I want to be concrete about this because we know that every organization works differently. So we would hope that the partners would identify potentially eligible moms within your existing caseload or client base and make a referral to Mothers Outreach Network. Partners are encouraged but never required to assist potentially eligible moms in completing the eligibility screener and application. And it's really an application. And we want this to feel like a support, not a burden on your staff. I also want to indicate that, as Renee stated, that is really a high level way to kind of help the applicant understand what is required. And we absolutely follow up with individuals who don't, for some reason, complete the application, and we're able to, and it looks as if they may be eligible. And Mothers Outreach Network and partners will work jointly to identify outreach strategies that fit your organization's context. So if you would like for us to come to your organization and make a presentation, if you'd like us to make it directly to your clients or directly to your staff, we're open to that. So whether you serve clients in a drop-in setting, a courtroom, a shelter, a benefits office, or a community space, we will adapt our approach to yours. We absolutely welcome your feedback on the outreach and referral process because your experience matters and will shape how we refine our outreach. CFSA contractors have been extended formal referral invitations, and we encourage attorneys and advocates working within or alongside this child welfare system to connect with us. Legal services providers, law firms, legal aid, pro bono programs, as specific legal needs are identified within our participant community. This is an open invitation to you. If your organization provides legal services and you're interested in a referral partnership, please reach out to us at pilot@mothersoutreachnetwork.org. We provide tailored onboarding for each partner. Again, we'll adapt to how your organization works and whether that means a one-on-one call, a brief staff training, or helping develop an intake protocol that fits with your practice. So we understand, again, that no two organizations work the same way, and we're really prepared to meet you where you are. We actively encourage you all to reach out to us, to encourage other orgs or providers that you know who might have will be working with moms who are eligible. Just reach out to us so we can provide support that's tailored to your specific processes. And again, it can look like anything that, it could be a one-on-one call with your outreach team to walk through the screener together. It can be a brief training for your staff on eligibility criteria and how to have the initial conversation with a client, or assistance developing a simple intake protocol that fits naturally into how you already work with your clients. So if you serve moms in a legal setting as attorneys, advocates, or legal aid staff, we can talk through how to raise mother up with a client in a way that is appropriate and sensitive to their situation. And we know that many of your clients are in moments of significant stress, and we want any conversation about this opportunity to add hope and not pressure. So to get that tailored support, reach out to us at pilot@mothersoutreachnetwork.org or call us at 202-818-8649 to speak with someone about a partner onboarding. And, again, I just want to speak again directly to the attorneys and legal services providers in the room because I know confidentiality is not just a professional obligation, it's the foundation of the trust your clients place in you. Mothers Outreach Network operates with protocols consistent with legal services practice. When a partner reaches out to us about a potential participant, we work with initials only. We don't ask for or use a client's full name in the initial referral stage. This protects the client confidentiality at the point of contact and keeps the process comfortable for partners who are bound by legal privilege or strict privacy rules. So before we ever reach out to a referred individual or make any referral on our behalf to outside legal help, domestic violence services, or any other resource, we will obtain their informed consent. The mom will decide who we can contact, what we share, and when. And this really is non-negotiable and is embedded in our intake process. Consent first, confidentiality centered is our approach. And it's not just a legal requirement for us. It's a values commitment. The women have often had their privacy violated, their decisions overridden, and their trust broken by institutions, and we want to do things differently. So just our project, here are the things, our role in implementation. Renee has pointed out much of it. I'll just emphasize project management and coordination across all program elements, marketing and community outreach, reaching women who may not come through a formal partner channel, supporting eligibility verification with care and confidentiality, and providing ongoing legal services, benefits, counseling, and empowerment programming to all participants throughout the study, executing enrollment once a woman is screened, confirming eligibility, and has given her informed consent. And one final note on fairness, neither Mothers Outreach Network, as Renee, I just want to emphasize this, nor the Access Justice Lab makes the final selection of who ends up in our direct cash transfer versus compensated research group. That process is independent and it's designed that way to protect the integrity of the research. So a woman is referred, a mom is referred and found eligible, will go through enrollment, and then group assignment occurs through a natural process. This is a question we often get. And so what this means for you and the women you serve, refer her if she may be eligible, and we will take it from there. And at this point, we've done lots of talking and we wanted to pause and entertain any questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to thank my partners at the Access to Justice Lab again, Jim and Renee. And again, thank you all for being here. Please let us know in the chat or just come off mute and please let us know what your questions are. Thank you.
So Melody, we do have a couple questions in the chat, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
great.
read them.
Do you want to present them?
I will read them from you or for
Okay,
you.
great.
Samara Braverman asks, to clarify eligibility, mothers without current custody of their children are eligible? Question. Or any mothers where the child was removed formally or informally for some period within the past year.
Okay. Do you want me to answer, Renee, or should
Yeah,
I?
go right
Okay.
ahead. Mhm.
So so the key to this, which I'm not sure if that was a part of your question, is that the mother does not have physical custody of her child. The child has either been put into foster care or they're in someone else's home. And that has to have been instigated by CF, Child and Family Services Agency. So your question is, and again, it has to have happened a year or less ago. So the child has to have been removed a year or less ago. And maybe we can go back to that slide to show you the criteria. But the child is not currently in the physical custody of their parent, of their mother. Samara, do you want to come off me? I'd love to know if that answers your questions. If that answers your question.
Thank
So
you so
all of
much.
yeah,
Yes, it
all of
does.
those. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Yes, I was just clarifying like a situation where Steve as they had maybe informally placed a child with a third party custodian and the child had gone back to mom, if that would make mom not eligible, if they need to currently be with someone else.
And Jim and Renee, correct me. I think if it happened a year or less ago and they've gone back, that still would satisfy, right? Our research criteria.
That is correct, yes. So Samara, if the child is removed through an informal removal or a formal removal and has gone back to mom, but that removal occurred within the last year, that mom is still eligible.
Thank you so
Um,
much. That answers my question.
Great. Thank you. Melody, there is another question in the chat from Claire Blumenson. Does a period of incarceration terminate participation? And follows up with a clarifier, like if someone gets incarcerated during the participation period, does that change their eligibility?
So, Jim, you may have to help me with this because I think one of the issues would be, are they available to take part in the research, right?
They can still take part in the research, yes, and we can we can attempt to work with the jail or the prison to try to get surveys to them. We may or may not be able to do an interview. That may be complicated. So we may need to discuss this particular situation offline, Melody. But they can remain eligible to participate in the research if that's within Mothers Outreach Network's priorities.
That sounds, I mean, from our perspective, yes,
Okay.
that would be
Well,
fine.
that solves that. We just may not be able to. We depending on logistics, we may not be able to complete the interviews if they're in one of the first 7 in each group that would be eligible for the interviews.
And I think in that case, Claire, we would potentially work with you to advocate for that participant to be made available for any interviews. If that's something that we could make happen.
And we can arrange it on our end, and we have had experience before in eliciting interview or survey information from individuals who are incarcerated. We've done that in other projects. So to some extent, it depends. If we get a sort of hard no and go play in the traffic from the head of the jail, it becomes difficult. But if they're at all amenable, then we know what to do. So
Okay.
we'll just need to know where they are. So I don't think from our point of view, it's not a categorical no, and that we can randomize them and have them participate and we can follow up. It'll just be a matter of whether we can work with the facility to get the interview and survey information. But that should not determine eligibility.
And from my perspective, Claire, that would be something that we would want to advocate for. So we'd be able to talk about that.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Melody, there is another question from India Christian. Can you still qualify if it's been a little over a year, like a year and 6 months?
So unfortunately, we had to sort of implement a cutoff point, and unfortunately, they would not. But if you have a person that you think is sort of eligible otherwise, I'd like to talk with you about that because there is something else that we're doing. But unfortunately, the 1 year mark is the cutoff, and we are very sorry about that because we have been encountering a number of moms who, but for that 1 year cutoff, would have been eligible. I don't know if Jim, you or Renee want to say a little bit more about that. No? Okay, that's it.
I think you're absolutely correct, Melody. We had to make a decision about where to cut it off, and that was the decision that Mothers Outreach Network made. Melody shared the application link in the chat, so everyone can access that. I don't see other questions in the chat, but feel free to keep putting them in or just come off mute and ask your question.
I'll say at that link, you can actually read a fair amount about the application as well. But we really do hope that you will, kind of steer folks there. If you think that there's a person who may have difficulty, as I mentioned earlier, with their consent, assisting them in completing it would be great. And again, we have followed up with people who haven't completed the application, but we had some indication that they may be eligible. So we ask that they not get discouraged if they decide, well, I've completed the first 8 or 10. and they've tired of it, they need to step away, we are very likely to see their information so long as that, they've put enough information in there to let us know that they're potentially eligible. We will follow up with them. I actually also have a question. If anybody in the audience has any thoughts and would like to share, if there are any strategies that you might suggest, if your organization or others that you know of have individual sort of case managers, or people who work with groups, if you have thoughts, we'd love to hear. But we have to kind of do this outreach broadly to organizations. We've emailed some organizations. And we do believe that, there's probably a category of service providers in the community who are regularly working with moms. There are about, at any given time in DC, 700 children in the foster care system whose mothers would likely be eligible. And it is a relatively small population when you're looking just at those numbers. And of course, our eligibility includes people who are moms whose children were removed informally, as we called it, the hidden foster care system. But it is a relatively small percentage of the DC population. And so any assistance you all have or strategies, if you want to reach out to us at 202-818-8649, we'd love to have your ideas. And we think it's a beneficial program, and we want to reach those moms who we know are in distress. And I practiced in this area, and so has Renee, and are acutely aware of the distress that parents and moms specifically for this project face. And so, it's our belief in our organization that this assistance could be really critical in helping moms reunify with their children more quickly. So we appreciate your help. That's correct. Even if it's been over a year, moms still need help. And that's why, I'd like to follow up with anybody who is in touch with someone. Even though this program, the pilot program, is not available, Mothers Outreach Network does operate other programming. We have a mom's empowerment program where moms can meet other moms, build community, and then take part in activities like organizing, finding moms who can be a part of our efforts, finding people to support some of our advocacy work, collecting signatures. We also, organize moms to do sort of newer initiatives, such as there's a youth and guaranteed income summit that moms are helping us organize. I think one of our partners to that is on the call, where we're going to bring youth together. If there's a mom who's too shy to take part in the Speakers Bureau, they may want to be a part of helping us recruit schools and other institutions, including our goal is to recruit for that program young people who may be detained, incarcerated. So we have a number of really exciting and uplifting initiatives. We put on special programming for moms in our groups throughout the year. And I hope that anybody on this call who is not eligible for the pilot will reach out to us. And, we'd be happy to bring you into our programming, our other programming. Okay. Do we see any more questions? Let's see, Renee. Okay.
I don't see any additional questions.
Okay.
Melody, did you want to close us out?
I will do that. So once again, thank you everyone for taking time out this afternoon. Please keep this program in mind. We will send out the recording. You can reach out to us individually and we will follow up. And I want to thank our staff attorney who's on the line, or was earlier, Leanne. She's still here. She is wonderful and assisting us with this project as well as with our legal program generally. And I want to thank again Jim and Renee. Thank you both for your partnership. And again, thank each and every one of you for taking part. And we hope to see you and hear from you regarding recruitment for the pilot. And also, if you'd just like to talk to us about our programs generally. Thank you so much.